do everything you possibly can, not just give it a try, which a lot of people would say, because then you've already given yourself an excuse not to do it, but just give it everything you've got if you believe in an idea. If it doesn't work, so what? Go on to the next idea.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Lars Klint. Previously, episode 1913 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 1 month, 10 days, 8 hours, and 15 minutes since we last recorded that conversation. That was then, this is now. Lars, how are you doing today?
I'm good, yeah. Who's counting, right? That's pretty impressive. Yeah, lots happens actually since we spoke last, a lot.
Yeah, well, let's dig into that. Now, the podcast was there, right? The Dane and the pain when we last had that conversation, and of course you were doing the video side of things, right? So you were teaching people via, was it Azure at that time you were focusing on?
It wasn't. No. So the podcast, it lived its life to its fullest, and it is no more, unfortunately. But that was a mutual decision. We kind of did what we wanted with it. I've just started a new thing, which is similar vein. As you mentioned, Azure as in the cloud technology of computing, and we, me and two other people, just started a new community initiative, which is in the vein of podcasts, but it's live video streaming on YouTube, which is open to anyone who wants to go and join it. And then we just did the first 2 episodes today, actually. It was really, really cool. It works really well. So I've sort of moved up a level from the podcasting that I was doing, but it's good fun.
That's wonderful. You got to what, 60 episodes on the podcast?
Something like that.
Yeah,
yes.
That's great.
An amazing amount of bad jokes.
Which is your trademark, which is the thing that you put in there to kind of take the edge off of what goes with the brand of the technical world. And then it's you as well. It's part of who you are as well. Is that accurate?
I think it is. I do a lot of teaching or a lot of online education, and there's so much of it is so boring. It's literally death by PowerPoint, where people they want to stop living when they go through 6 hours of someone's slides. And I'm very much trying to not be that guy. So my approach has been, if I can combine the technical education with both humor and also relevant real-world examples, well, I can make it a much better learning experience, and people actually want to learn rather than have to learn. And I think that's a really important distinction that we can make when we take people and sort of say, hey, I want to show you a really cool thing, actually make them engaged in the whole journey, not just in the, oh, I'm going to transfer some knowledge to you, because it rarely works, to be honest. So yes, that is pretty accurate.
Now, how much of life, though, Lars, is, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Pareto law, with the 80-20 perspective, but in the midst of everything, like when we ended our conversation and I asked you to say something, you said, do today what others won't so you can do tomorrow what others can't. So
absolutely. How
much of the won't would you say, is it the 80% is the won't, and then the 20% is the can't in that equation?
I don't know if you can put it down like that. I don't think it's that black and white. I guess the thought behind that saying is that you need to plan for the long term, so that today you're sowing the seeds. Like all the things that I'm doing today, like I've just started a new community group on YouTube. That's not going to be a success overnight. Like we had 15 people watching the first episode, but it's a start. It's sowing a seed. We're learning from that and then keep building on it. So I'm doing today, I'm putting myself forward, spending time on doing this minor thing, but because I believe that it will be something more in a year's time or 2 years' time, or tomorrow, it'll be something much more that I can then build on in another capacity. So I think that's more of a journey rather than just an 80-20 in that sense. I know what you're saying in terms of like how much of it is stuff that that others won't do. Probably most of it, to be honest. It's very easy to sort of always just go too hard. It's very easy to quit. Anyone can do that. But it's the hard part of going, actually, I think this can work. And I think it can work because of these reasons. And then do everything you possibly can, not just give it a try, which a lot of people would say, because then you've already given yourself an excuse not to do it. But just give it everything you've got if you believe in an idea. If it doesn't work, so what? Go on to the next idea. But you're doing the things that people just won't. They won't spend the time on it, or they won't put themselves forward mentally or emotionally or physically or whatever it might be. So I think it's much more kind of deep almost.
It is.
But
It
I think there's a
is.
lot more to that saying than simply just the 80/20.
Yeah, well, again, my wife and I, just to give it the preface to this statement of the 80/20, just to give it the weight of what happened at the beginning of this year, we defined wealth by breaking it up into an acronym as to when essential action leads to happiness. So you have wealth. And it feels as though within the won't and the can't, it's more that individuals are being disconnected from the perspective of the action that's required, the work, if you would. And you said sowing, and I love that, because sowing, I believe, is 80% and 20% is harvesting. And the two carry work, the two do carry work. But it seems as though, as much as you're making things fun, there's a reality in there has to be an ambition, if you would, a work ethic to accomplishing anything. And that's the vein which I was carrying it. Now, is that accurate?
Oh, for sure. I still don't believe there's anything such as easy money or fast wins or any of those things. I have a really good friend who's extremely successful, and he once in a while, it used to be more often, but once in a while he gets people saying, "Oh, you're just so lucky." And he goes, "You know what? The harder I work, the luckier I get." It's funny how it works. And it's so accurate, because what you put out there, you get back. And if you always look for cutting the corner or doing the easiest solution or the least amount of work, well, that's where you get back. You get the little things, you get the little rewards. If you put yourself into it, and as you said, you have, there's action to it. There's an incentive to, because you know what the long-term goal is, there's an incentive to do all those actions and do all that work. And I think a lot of people struggle with doing the work because they don't see the bigger picture, or they don't have their eyes on the long-term price. And I think that's important in any, whether it's your personal relationship, or it's a career, or it's a business you're building up, whatever it is that you're attempting to put yourself forward with everything you've got. You've got to know where you want to end up. Otherwise, how are you going to know what the journey is? So yeah, I think there's definitely accuracy in that.
And I want to quantify this now for everyone that's listening, because you are a Microsoft MVP. I had the opportunity to hear a keynote being done by a local MVP. His name is Nigel Sami. And my friends, the work that is required to only keep the MVP, right? It's not as though you become an MVP and that's, hey, well, I've reached, right? It's something that's consistent. So just to quantify the work that you've put forward, tell us about cloud, even with the dynamics of the technology and the advancement, what is required by you, the work that's required by you to keep current.
That's the $1 million question, I think. I think the first step is just to acknowledge that you cannot be current in everything. It's just not possible. And if you try, you might be current for 5 minutes, but then you lose track because there's so much. So the first step is kind of go, okay, I really need to know about all these things, and then I'll just make sure I know about the other things, not anything in depth. And once you kind of get that mental relaxation, it makes it much easier. But in terms of, you say quantify it, you were saying, for example, your friend, the other MVP, did a keynote. I just did a keynote for a smaller Australian sort of community conference a couple of months ago. And it was a keynote, as keynotes go, you want to be a bit more sort of inspiring and a bit sort of larger picture, not so much the details. And I spent 3 weeks, I think, every day, little bits here and there, just to try and get this working properly. And we're talking about a 45-minute talk, and you just put so much effort into it. So coming back to your point, and let's use MVP as an example. If you don't want to do the work that's required to be an MVP, if you wouldn't do it anyway, you won't remain an MVP. You might do it for 1 year, but then you realize how much work you had to do that you wouldn't have done otherwise, and you just won't do it again. So it's got to be like a natural urge to do it, or you want to, it's got to be fun. You got to get something out of it. And fun's not just clown, ha, 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 but fun in the sense of you're having a learning experience, or in my case, I love seeing people have that light bulb moment where you say something that's an idea or a technology or a feature or a tip or whatever, and they just have that bling. You can see they just go, oh, that's the bit I missed. That's what I needed. I love that moment. And that keeps me going for a lot of it, in doing talks over and over again.
Nigel said the same thing as well. He said that there's one moment someone pulls up at the door, pulls him aside, he gives them a piece of advice, and they call back. He said that's really the value that you get, to show someone something that they didn't see.
Yeah, it's the best thing. And as developers, we're lazy, right? We don't want to do the same things over and over again. We just want to do it once. And then if someone's already done it, well, we go and use their thing. So the fact that we can share things this way and we can inspire people to kind of go, oh, that was the bit I needed. Now I can complete my bigger picture. That's so rewarding. It makes it really cool.
It seems as though within everything that I'm seeing where an individual focuses in and puts the work in, there's so many principles that are applicable across life. Again, you're seeing within everything you're expressing the value of community, the value of tapping on the wisdom of others, right? Then there's the value of the work, right? And then the season. So there's the work season where you're planting, right? And then the reaping season. All scenarios that are applicable across life in other aspects. Now, there is a 12-year-old stepson that was at that time 12, which is like 14 or 15. And you said he was kind of catching on to things that you were doing. How has he evolved? And your girlfriend as well. How have they evolved as you have?
Yeah, that's funny you should mention it. So Jordan's 14 now. He's in that real early teenage phase where he's just realized that he has a voice. So he knows absolutely everything and he has to argue about absolutely everything, which is frustrating at times. But it also means that I need to make sure that I have arguments, if we are having a proper debate, like a constructive debate, that I have arguments that are kind of proving my point or at least illustrating my point. So it keeps me on my toes, as well as being incredibly frustrating at times as well. But that's part of the growing experience, right? Of, separating from your parents and all that. Yeah. So it's still going,
And of course, your girlfriend is there still supporting you. She's in the midst there, is she?
Yeah, she's still here. Yeah, she's doing her own thing. We've done some physical changes to the way we work. So we now have a separate office that is away from the main house because we both work from home. So that's been a thing. I said there's a lot of things happened. That's been a growth, I guess, part of my journey that has meant that I now have my own studio where I can record audio and video. It's really nice. I mean, it's not finished and it's not professional, everything level, but it's getting there. So yeah, we're moving ahead. We know exactly where we want to be in about 5 or 6 years. So everything that we do is kind of in that line. So that's really cool.
Well, that was a grand opportunity to call into Australia and have a conversation, to know that you have not given up, that you've continued on the path, on the decision, right? It is absolutely motivational and inspirational. So thank you for your service to humanity, because you don't just keep things bottled up, right? You don't say, hey, I've learned this and I'm going back into my shell. You're sharing and you are helping others.
Absolutely. If you want to end on a good thing, I saw this sign once that said, if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted. And it's so true.
I love that.
So you need to share. Yeah.
Lars, again, a great pleasure. A pleasure I treasure. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.